Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. In Vermont, there are about 2,800 children who have a parent serving in the military. That's 2,800 young people who face unique challenges that their peers do not. Even when there's no active deployment, military kids often say goodbye to a parent for extended training exercises. And the parent may miss a child's birthday or school event. Clearly, military kids serve too. To acknowledge and celebrate their service, April is the month of the military child in Vermont and across the nation. For these children, military service means making the best of a tough situation through dedication and resilience. Keith Silva reports our story.
As a senior at Thetford Academy, Gabriel Gates fits in with the other young men and women training for the spring sports season. With one exception, his dad serves in the military.
Just about everything I can remember is him in the military. The first day I was dropped off at kindergarten, my dad was in full uniform and went up to Burlington as soon as he dropped me off and flew to Tucson, Arizona to do Border Patrol in 2006. It's just been a part of everything.
Gabe's dad, Sergeant Joshua Gates, served on 2 year-long overseas deployments, which meant Gabe had to confront some big issues when he was young.
It kind of forces you to grow up and forces you to look at things like, yeah, he's at work, but work could lead to something bad and that he could not come back. You have to think about things from an age that's younger than most that understand the concept of those things.
Then, and now, most of Gabe's friends don't understand what it's like to have a parent who serves in the military.
When you're talking to your friend and you're like, yeah, my dad's gone, and they'll be like, yeah, my dad's gone too. My parents divorced. I see him every other weekend, something like that. But it's not the same at all, obviously.
Vermont is one of 8 U.S. states, territories, and districts without a military base. For the approximately 2,300 military dependents living in Vermont, that can feel isolating. The Vermont National Guard Family Readiness Center at Camp Johnson in Colchester helps combat that isolation.
Volunteerism is super important to us as a population.
Brian Stoudnauer is the lead child and youth program coordinator with the Vermont National Guard.
Their mom or dad signed up for the military. They did not. And so they were brought into this world being a military dependent. And the challenges and struggles that they go through as an individual are going to be more than a typical teenager, than a typical youth. And so it's super important to have programs and services for them to support them in their times of need.
Try Northwest.
Stoudnauer runs camps during school vacations and in the summer, like this drone camp that was held in partnership with UVM Extension 4-H. These events build lifelong friendships for these kids.
They have a network of peers, actual military youth peers that they connect to. And it's really great because we bring these kiddos back around school vacation times, around school breaks. We do periodic weekend programming as well. And when these kiddos come back together, it's amazing to see them just get right back into it. Just sets them all at ease and allows them to talk about the issues that are present for them being in military dependent youth.
Gabe serves on the Vermont National Guard Teen Council, which helps Stoudnauer plan the camps and events for the Child Youth Program. As a veteran of this program, he appreciates what is done for him, his family, and other military families in Vermont.
Almost always when I'm at these programs, I'm with one of the friends that I've known for probably 10 years now. And we're still friends, and we talk and we hang out outside of camps and Child Youth programs. And it's a big help, and it sounds kind of cheesy, like, oh, find somebody to talk about it with, but it definitely does help. And those connections, even if you're not necessarily talking about your parent being deployed, you can look at each other and be like, yeah, man, it sucks, but it's okay.
Set, go.
Gates' experience of taking on a leadership role in the Guard's child and youth programs echoes the service by another member of the Gates family.
It's just where I happen to end up, and it's hard at times, but it's just someone needs to do it, and my dad happens to be the one that raised his hand.
Standing out by standing up. That's the life of a military kid. In Thetford, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you, Gabe. Joining me now are two guests. They are both members of the Military Kids Vermont team. Allison Smith works for UVM Extension as the 4-H Learning Experiences Coordinator, and Brian Stoudnauer is a civilian who serves as the Child and Youth Programs Coordinator with Vermont National Guard Family Programs. Thank you so much for both for coming in. It's great. So, Allison, why don't you just describe what is Military Kids Vermont?
Sure. So Military Kids Vermont is a group of organizations across Vermont, and we're dedicated to creating experiences, programs, and support for youth of military families. We have groups represented in our organization, including the Vermont Army and Air National Guard, Military OneSource, UVM Extension, the 4-H program. We also have the Vermont Youth Development Corps and the YMCA.
Wow.
And finally, we have some really dedicated community partners like Julie Thorpe, who help us to fundraise and organize events.
Fantastic. And Brian, talk about what you do and why it's important.
Yeah, so, arranging and organizing activities specifically designed and created for military kids is super important. We live in such a rural community here in Vermont, and the further away you get from Burlington, the more rural it gets, and these kiddos could be the only one in their class that are a military youth, and so having activities designed specifically for them, focusing on activities that and programming curriculum that add to their strengths, and focus, talk to their weaknesses as well. It allows them to engage and connect with other military youth is super important.
Right. It was really striking to me that, of course, there is no base here, so they aren't in that group automatically.
That's right. Yeah. They may be the only one in their class that's a military youth, maybe in their school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Allison, tell us about April as the month of the military child.
Sure. So April was first designated as Month of the Military Child by Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger. And so we've been celebrating since 1986 through the Department of Defense. And it's really our chance to highlight youth and dependents of military families and to talk about some of the sacrifices they make, and that oftentimes it's not just the family member that's in the military that's serving, but the youth are serving in their own way too, and that experience for them is very unique, especially living in a rural state like Vermont.
Right. So what kind of special skills or areas of focus do your programs take on?
Well, oftentimes we focus on programming just as we would any other youth. We really try to engage youth in skills or areas of interests or passions that they might have. But within that, we try to embed skills of resiliency, a lot of peer-to-peer connections, so helping them create that sense of community, and of course leadership skills as well. And so some of the topics we've covered, we offer camps either during school break or summertime. We have an annual drone camp, which is a partnership with the Rubenstein School. It's very fun.
It's really cool.
And our break camps often focus on anything from the watershed in Lake Champlain to topics in healthy living to just getting outside and having fun with each other.
Awesome. So, Brian, what can communities, as you were saying, some are very isolated, they're all over Vermont, what can communities do to support military kids and families?
Yeah, so number one, just realizing that they're in our communities, and along with that, knowing that they're not the ones that signed up for the military, right? Their parents signed up the military. They were kind of born into it, and absolutely, they're super proud and loyal to their parents that are in the military and to the military and to our state and country. But knowing they're there, being aware that they're there, and being open to them, right? We tend to put ourselves in little bubbles sometimes as we're moving throughout our community, and sometimes we say things that might be, that we don't necessarily approve of that the military is doing at that time, but knowing that there's ears around that hear that, and that impacts them if we're speaking negatively about these things, and just having a level of awareness that they are around is super important.
Terrific. And are there things that you've noticed that military kids are particularly good with? I think of my friends who grew up in military, and they're just they have it together. There's something very together about them. What have you noticed?
There really is. They're really thrust to growing up a little earlier than the typical youth would be out in the world. They're as we've mentioned a couple times, and we focus on in our curriculum. They're super resilient. They tend to bounce back from things really easily, and they're extremely respectful. I've worked with a lot of different youth populations in my career, and in this one I find to be super respectful. as being super helpful also. You know, I take groups into the field, and when it's time to do things, the military youth are there to get things done then.
Right. Well, I was really impressed by Gabe as well. I mean, he just seemed so aware of many things and had a deepness about him. Do you find that's true with a lot of these kids?
Certainly. Some of the military youth I've worked with within the 4-H extension program, I feel that many of their experiences that they've had have forced them to look at life in a different way. And so even the dedication that they might bring to their 4-H projects, you know, in relation to other youth, I think that there's some insight into the future, and it gives them extra determination and drive. And I just echo what Brian said about being real team players and the first to pitch in and help out when they see someone else who needs help.
Are they more at risk or not because you teach so much resiliency or? You know,
they're absolutely more at risk, Fran. You know, the stressors that are on them are greatly increased due to their parents being involved in the military. You know, their parents they leave once a month for 2 days a month.
Right.
Every year they leave between a 2 and 4 week training during the summertime, spring or summer, and they could be deployed for 12 months or more at any point in time to do anything either for our state or for our country.
Yeah, really something for all of us to keep in mind. So how can military families find out about what's happening?
Great. So there's a Military Kids Vermont Facebook page. So we're definitely out on Facebook page. You can find some of our activities through the UVM Extension website, and then through the Vermont National Guard Family Programs website as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Allison and Brian, for caring so much and for shedding light on these children and young people in our midst. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.